In the Pathfinder 2nd Edition remaster, there are a lot of classes that were greatly improved. For example, Alchemists became less clunky, champion subclasses are no longer locked behind an alignment, and Barbarians can rage during initiative as a free action now. But despite all these changes, I think the King of Improvement isn't even a class. I think that title belongs to a power fantasy, underutilized, underappreciated, and previously useless. I am talking about the Tavern Brawler, the Makeshift Scrapper, the Weapon Improviser. The Weapon Improviser archetype is so much better in the remaster thanks to its main feat, Improvised Pommel, becoming almost completely reworked. Now, with more words. First, Improvised Pommel is no longer an action. That means you can always have the item bonuses and the extra damage die, with the ability to use combat maneuvers like Sudden Charge. This is already a huge buff, but then you read the next paragraph. Oh, the hand wraps of Mighty Blows can replace the item damage and number of damage die, cool. And it applies property runes now? Oh, think of the potential. You could pick up a waffle iron, smack someone upside the head with it, and they just burst into flames. Or you could shatter a rock so hard that they become terrified of you. Of course, the mileage of this archetype is heavily dependent on the game master and adventure you're playing. Improvised weapons rely on the creativity of your surroundings. If you're in a dungeon that has multiple bare featureless 20 by 20 rooms, Weapon Improviser will feel more useless than a bless with a bard in the party. Just talk to your GM before making a Weapon Improviser, which is, generally good advice to do anyways, no matter what your build is. I also made this handy-dandy damage and trait chart for improvised weapons, which you can find in the description. For our character class, we have a plethora of options. Any of the martial classes would work for our purposes, but with Fighter's entire shtick being a crit monster, combats would become super hot simulator. Grabbing bottles, breaking said bottles, grabbing more bottles, breaking more bottles, rinse and repeat. I think it would be really fun to have the background be a merchant. We could sell all of the traditional weapons our character doesn't need, as well as have a reason for carrying all kinds of BS to throw in combat. Maybe the reason our character started adventuring is to sell the rare items they find. I wanted to give some appreciation to some of the less popular ancestries. I landed on Circri from the Howl of the Wild expansion. They are magic-eating bugs with a variety of different evolutional abilities. The heritage we will be choosing is the Hardshell Circi for the inbuilt medium armor and other options I will discuss later down the line. The Circi has a unique naming scheme where they choose their names based off of their jobs or identifying features. After a brief look at synonyms for merchant, I chose the name Vendor of Curiosities, or Ven for short. The ability scores at first level are +4 strength, +1 dexterity, +2 constitution, 0 intelligence, 0 wisdom, and +2 charisma. Focus on raising strength for your bottle-breaking prowess, constitution for becoming a beefy lad, and your choice of mental skills. Wisdom for raising your will saves, intelligence for identifying magic items, and charisma for trading wares. Our skill proficiencies are fairly simple. Athletics for our combat maneuvers, Arcana for our knowledge of artifacts, and Diplomacy and Lore Mercantile for our merchant businesses. I love all of the Circi ancestry feats. All of the options look really fun, from speaking to small insects to combining different evolutions. As for what I chose, Vestigial Magic Sense helps to identify what items are magical to sell. And both of the Hardshell Circi evolution options are great choices for martial characters, with Circulatory System giving a chance to negate critical hits, and Dampening Harmonics giving temporary magic resistance. Whoa, a situation where Hefty Hauler is useful? Out of combat, you'll be wanting to be a total loot goblin so that you can sell more and more magic items. Also, having more items to use as weapons never hurts, in case you do end up in a featureless room and you need to whack someone with a random stool leg. I always recommend Titan Wrestler for any athletics build for the ability to combat maneuver larger enemies. Prescient Planner and Prescient Consumable are always fun. It creates those moments of, oh, I have a perfect item for this situation, and just randomly pulling out a bear trap out of your bag. For the fighter feats, I chose a more supportish build focusing on feats like Slam Down and Dazing Blow to disorient foes. Use Advantageous Assault to capitalize on the disorientation, and Flinging Charge to do your best super hot impression. Slinging bottles at people before sliding on your knees and bonking them with the steel chair. This was a character I normally wouldn't draw. The silhouette was my main concern going into the sketch. As I went on, I experimented with implementing different body proportions, making one tall and lanky, one wide and muscular. I especially love the designs with these chunky arms and oversized backpack. I mashed some of the ideas together to make sure that the shape, language, and silhouette still held together. I had a really hard time designing the head. I spent most of my time just practicing similar shapes as I was not used to the anatomy and I couldn't find a good visual identity for the head. Eventually, I realized that these mandibles looked kind of like a mustache and ran with the idea. I landed on the design with a merchant hat as the base before I cleaned up the sketch. So the render took way longer than I had hoped. This is the most complicated design I have made by far, with the equipment and overlapping carapace taking most of my time. Beetles have an iridescent sheen that produces sharp contrasts and highlights that I really wanted to capture in the render. You can see me struggle reworking the same areas over and over, but as I continued, I fell into a rhythm and sped up considerably. And here's the Vendor of Curiosities in all of his glory. For this character design, I just wanted to make a cool weapon improviser. There isn't much of a story arc for this character, so feel free to use this character in your own games and make up one. There's a level 20 character sheet down in the description, as well as the improvised weapon chart. I spent way too long making this video. And you know what? I'll shill a little bit. If you enjoyed this video, consider doing the typical like, comment, and subscribing. I also post some actual plays here. I'm currently GMing Crown of the Kobold King, but there are some other secret campaigns in the works, so be sure to look out for those. Also consider supporting me directly on Patreon, where I post my artworks and other projects for early viewing. Or, if you really like my artwork, my commissions are typically open. You can find my Blue Sky account down in the description. Thanks for watching. Peace!